And yes, I am using live ammunition. This one's in for jams. Not reliable. Doesn't do what it's supposed to. So I got the slide stop through the frame, through the link. This is in the locked up position up. This is in the fully unlocked to the rear, but we can slide it as far forward as it'll go and up just a little bit. This is the part of the extractor that touches the cartridge case. So this area's got to be positive.
Hi, and welcome to Over the Gunsmith's Shoulder. I'm Gene Kelly, president of the American Gunsmithing Institute, and in this segment, Master Gunsmith Ken Brooks is going to walk you step by step through a gunsmithing repair. You're going to learn a lot. And if you'd like to learn to be a certified professional gunsmith, then go to AmericanGunsmithingInstitute.com and request an information package. Now let's learn from Ken.
Well, we're back with another over my shoulder, or over my arm and shoulder, whatever. So today we have a pseudo 1911. So this is a Pistola Automatica caliber 45 Fabricada PCR Haftasa, an Argentine military gun. This one's in for jams. Not reliable. Doesn't do what it's supposed to. So, we're going to dive into it. Before we do, we need to, there's a few things I'm going to check just without even taking the gun apart. First I'm going to do is take the magazine out, show you the magazine's empty. Pull the slide back so we can see the barrel is indeed empty, so now we can fool around with it. Right off the bat, I'm probably going to have to polish the ramp. You can look down in there, you can see that the ramp is blued, and you can see where the copper from the bullet has been rubbing. So I'm going to have to polish that. But when I polish that, I don't want grit and stuff getting into the rest of the gun. How far am I going to have to take this gun apart to do just that one thing? So that's kind of what I want to know. Is the hammer and safety correct? Or am I going to have to address those? If they're not correct, then that's a safety concern. We would have to address that. Obviously, if we put the safety on, manual safety, you can see that the hammer, at least I hope you can see, the hammer was cammed back. This safety cams the hammer back off the sear. Now we pull the trigger. The manual safety works great. So positive, negative, neutral on the hammer. Turn that around, and we are positive. I can feel it. Now I'm not pushing down on it to where my thumb starts to turn colors because I'm putting so much pressure on it. I'm resting my thumb on it. So now as I precisely pull the trigger and I take my finger, I wrap it all the way around, and I've gone over this multiple times in multiple venues so you guys get an idea of what's going on. Too many people pull the trigger like this and they go, I can't tell if it's positive or negative or neutral. Well, yeah, because once the trigger pulls the sear and the sear releases, you automatically over pull. It's incredibly difficult to check that in that manner. My finger comes all the way through. The tip of my finger rests on the frame. Now I can just precisely, I'm squeezing, I'm not pulling, I'm squeezing this thumb on my left hand. I can feel, does the hammer move close to my thumb, which we do not want it to do? Does the hammer not move at all, or does the hammer move away from my thumb? And it moves away from my thumb just slightly, so it's positive. So as far as taking the bottom half of the gun apart to fix, there's nothing to fix down there. I'm going to have to polish that ramp. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to have to take the grips off because I'm going to want to clamp the frame, and I don't want to break the wooden grips. Again, just going through these things real quick to figure out if I'm going to have to tear this whole bottom apart, so be it, but I want to know ahead of time. Next, I'm going to check loose breech just for fun. And the reason I'm going to check it just for fun, because I know it's going to have some. They all do. That doesn't contribute to reliability. It contributes to durability. So it's not a safety issue. The gun will still function correctly with a little bit of loose breech. And I said it. They all have it, and they do. You can hear it. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Not as much as I expected. Now, there we go. Remind me, and I'll check it when we got the slide off. It'll be easier to see. It has loose breech, but the gun's not here to repair loose breech. It's not a reliability issue. So I will mention that to the customer, let them make the call. You know, do you want to fix that aspect of it to make the gun last longer? Checking lockup, because lockup and loose breech are connected. If we got minimum lockup, which we don't, we have pretty good lockup. Barrel tilts down that far. Pretty good lockup. The more lockup you have, the more loose breech you can tolerate before the barrel beats itself to death. So this is going to last a while as it is. So now to check for the feeding, we're going to have to check the barrel, the extractor, all those good things. So we're going to take it apart real quick. There's that frame ramp. I'm going to take my glasses off for a minute. I can see a little better. So somebody's been fixing it. Now, these have been reblued. This one's been reblued. You can see that we got some copper wash here. And you can see that we come straight up, and then somebody beveled this edge right here. Dang it. We want that to be straight up to the belly here. Is it life or death? I hope not. We'll see. But we'll fool with this in a couple of minutes. Now we're going to take our recoil spring and stuff out of here. I always make sure that, nope, we had that on backwards. Take our barrel out. Standard military type barrel. The ramp is just down here at the bottom, not on the sides at all, but it could be ramped too deep. So I grab my ramp gauge. Let's check headspace first. Look at that. Nice on the headspace with our ramp. With our hood. Good. But we have loose breech, so there's going to be a certain amount of headspace because we've got play between the hood and the breech face. Drop our ramp gauge in. We can go altering our ramp. We can chamfer that chamber like we want. So looking inside the chamber, you can see it's, I don't know if that's dirt or what. Let me grab a patch real quick. Yeah, I'm thinking we're a little rough there. So we'll be chamfering the chamber, polishing that, check that. All right. So I got the slide stop through the frame, through the link. This is in the locked up position up. This is in the fully unlocked to the rear, but we can slide it as far forward as it'll go and up just a little bit. We can check it when we put the slide back on if you'd like. But you can see that our ramp, our frame ramp comes up and then it's rounded right here up to almost our barrel ramp. So we have very little jump. So to correct that, I'm going to try and true up the frame ramp as best I can. Then we're going to chamfer our chamber, which we just talked about, and I'm going to steepen up this ramp a little bit to give us a bit more jump. We'll see how it goes, how we proceed at that point. Now I told you guys to remind me to check the loose breech off the frame. So look at the gap between the hood and the breech face. Got a little bit of loose breech. Now that's in the fully locked up. I'm pushing the barrel all the way up, and the barrel will slide back and forth. That's the amount of loose breech that we have. So it's a fair amount. But again, it's not here for that. We've got to touch base with the customer and get his okay, because it's not a safety issue and it's not a reliability issue. Some guns, of course, you can't do that because the way they lock up, they have the slide is machined or has an internal bushing that's pressed or soldered or silver brazed or welded in place that's fixed in the slide, And when the barrel's in the locked up position, it actually impinges the front of the barrel, helps with your accuracy. And so you can't get full lockup and then have the barrel free enough to slide back and forth to check your loose breech. So on those slides that don't utilize a link, or the barrel isn't free to travel back and forth in the locked up position to check your loose breech, that's one of the reasons we check it on the gun. We pull the slide back that 1/8 of an inch, or maybe even 1/4 of an inch, depends, to get the tension off of the barrel, because it needs to be free so we can see, is there that play? Again, a lot more going on there. Just don't want to get too much into the weeds, but trying to help you guys out. All right, so feeding. So now we're going to look at our extractor. Right there's our extractor. And as I'm looking at it, now I got it so the camera can see it. I'm going to turn it so I can see now. It looks neutral-ish to me. So I'm going to take a cartridge and slide it up underneath the extractor, and we have almost no tension. Got a little bit, but not as much as we need. So we're going to need to tension our extractor. The hook does not come into contact with the inclined plane right here of the extractor groove in the case, the rim cut, this inclined plane. So that's good, but I am going to have to move that over. And now I'm going to hold this up. Yeah, that extractor might be a little positive. Slightly, but that's all it has to be, is slightly positive. So I'm actually surprised most of them are relatively negative, but there's very little tension. So, all right, so it doesn't look like there's anything dangerous to the point where it'd be like, oh, well, this barrel's wrecked, we can't fix it. Why waste a whole bunch of time fitting the extractor, polishing the frame ramp, doing all that, if I got to get a new barrel? And the customer says, nah, that's too much money, I don't want to do that. So we've examined everything that we need that's going to contribute to our feeding, except the magazine. We got a magazine, but all these other things are wrong. So we're going to dive into this at that point. So let's pull out our extractor first. I'm going to give that a good little stretch just because it didn't have much. It had some kinks in it that I didn't like. And looks just like a standard 1911 extractor, don't it? All right. So there was so little tension, I couldn't tell if it was positive here, behind the hook, which is the part of the extractor that touches the cartridge case. So this area's got to be positive. Generally, when I'm fitting one of these, I'll just go ahead and angle this back, just like it's supposed to when I got it in the vise. If I'm using a 3-corner file, I might undercut the hook, but we know the hook's already positive, so we're not going to have to do that. And then I will polish the face here just a little bit, just for fun. The bottom is rounded over a bit. I may hit that on a buffer, and then again, I may not. One thing we didn't look at was the breech face. It's a little, I don't want to say rough. It's not that the shell can't slide across it, because it can. It's old. Let's put it that way. It's not that it's super rough, it's just old. I am going to go ahead and break that firing pin hole at the top. And yes, I know it's an ugly looking little knife, but it does exactly what I need. I don't need to run out and spend a bunch of money on a new knife. And now, if you look right in there, you can see the top of the firing pin is bright and shiny. Firing pin hole, excuse me, where I chamfered that edge. And that's all we got to do. I could make a long tool with a real sharp drill bit in it, and I go in and turn by hand and chamfer that. But that's time that I'm now making another tool to do a specific job that the knife does just what it needs to. All right, so did that. All right, one more thing I'm going to tear apart just so I get kind of all the disassembly aspect of this. out of the way because I'm going to have to stand up, and it's brutal on Robert, the cameraman. He's got to rearrange the cameras and stuff because we're going to go to my vise. So if we can do a whole bunch of stuff here, get it out of the way, that's going to have to be done regardless, so be it. So there's the right grip panel, left grip panel, and if you're not used to this, lay it out in a specific order. Just kidding. You guys have seen that before. Left grip panel, dirty underneath. But now I can clamp this. Another thing I'm going to do is, hand me a paper towel, will you? See, the cameraman is multi-talented. He can even give me tools or necessary stuff. So what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to be polishing this ramp, I don't want a bunch of crap down inside here, right? So I'm going to take a paper towel and shove it into the trigger hole right there and back here, so I can adjust and polish our ramp without any of the sand, the sanding grit and whatnot that comes off getting into the rest of the action. Then when I'm done, I will push it out from the top. I actually will even take and put a little bit of oil on here to make it a little sticky. And then when I push it out, it'll just clean that. All right, so gonna file on that, gonna grind on that, gonna grind on that. And let's get at it. We'll show you, be back with just a minute. We gotta get the cameras resituated. All right, so here's our extractor in the vise, and I need to angle it back like so, and I'm exaggerating with the file just so you can see it a little easier. So what I'm gonna do is take my glasses off, and this is a square file, and I just want that surface behind the hook to be positive. That's the area of the extractor that touches the cartridge case. Now, since it's square, I don't want to bump into the hook, so I'm trying to keep it back against the limiting pad because I just want to get that angle correct. I don't want to bump into the hook because the hook is slightly positive, which is good. It's what we want. But if I hit it, I'm going to grind off the tip, cut off the tip with the file. So then I can take a 3-corner file, and the part that'll fit up underneath the hook, I can match this same flat, but right up underneath the hook. That last little bit, I can undercut the hook to make it a little more positive if I want. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper, if I can find the right stuff here. And I'm going to use the 3-corner file for my backing. I use backing for my sandpaper all the time. I can't think. The only time that I use my thumb as backing is when I don't care about the surface, like if I'm doing a barrel channel in a wood stock. Otherwise, I want backing. I want flat surfaces. And I only say that because my hands-on students are always sitting at their bench polishing with their thumb, and all they're doing is following the imperfections in the surface. Okay, so polish that. And with that backing, if that corner gets up next to the hook, I'm polishing in a positive angle underneath that hook. So essentially that's all I'm going to do right now. Change that angle. Remember, we didn't have enough tension on the extractor against the cartridge case. So I'm going to actually do some grinding on the limiting pad here, maybe this one. But I'll do that on the 1-inch belt. And right now we're kind of focused, since we got the camera set up here at the vise. So I'm going to put the extractor back on the bench and move on to the next aspect, which is going to be our barrel. Can you see that? So here's our barrel. I don't want to go too deep into the chamber because there's our ramp gauge. I got plenty of room, but remember the amount of loose breech is how far back our ramp gauge has to move. So we got to move back just a little bit. Now I got plenty of room on the sides, but this bottom I got to be aware of. You don't want to be excessive and take too much out. So with my little carbide burr, I'm going to go in, and you want to be wearing eye protection. My head in the way. And I want to break what is the left side of the chamber mouth. The left side of the chamber mouth, the edge. Sorry, I get to doing stuff and I'm halfway through a sentence. I apologize. All right, so that's starting on what is the left side. I'm going to go over and do the same thing on what is the right side. A little higher RPMs because I can see it better and I have a little bit more control over here. All right, now I'm going to come in and right down here at the bottom. All right. You can see I didn't deepen it at the bottom where the ramp is. Now I still can. Where did my goodies go? Clean out any of that crud that's down in there. So I can put my ramp gauge in. Then back it out the amount of loose breech, which is right about there, and it's hard for me to do it and show you guys. I'm going to turn this in my vise. And hopefully I can do this without having my fingers in the way. So ramp gauge is fully seated, but it's got to come back the amount of loose breech that we've got. So I'm going to pull this back just a little. Right there is roughly how much loose breech we've got. So you can see that the ramp gauge is still way below flush. So I can take more out if need. But I don't want to take out any if I don't have to. The more the barrel encompassing the cartridge, the better. So at this point, I'm going to take carbide burr out and use my sanding mandrel, which is a piece of spring stock with some sandpaper wrapped around it. And we got various grits of sandpaper here. And let me see here. I don't want real coarse stuff. I don't need 80 grit sandpaper. And I don't want, let me get this wrapped up here. I don't want the end of the spring stock sticking through because that ends up hitting the top of the chamber. We got to be careful. We don't want this sanding to cut a groove or to rough up the chamber any more than it absolutely has to, but we need to be able to sand here all the way around. So what I'm trying to do at this point is just remove, and you may not be able to see all of this, remove some of the carbide grinding marks. The machine marks. Ow. Be careful. Your finger rubs against that. It gets hot friction. So this is what works for me. If you got a different way, hey, right on. But this is the way I do it. This is over the shoulder in Ken's shop, so I don't. This works for me. So now I'm going to transition between the ramp and the chamber and break that edge. All right, one thing I'm going to do here a little bit is go to just a little I want a small diameter sanding surface so I can get right up next to here. You can see how this is all polished except right up in these corners. And so spin it around so I can get this other side. And my tape is starting to fail on this one. It got so hot that the glue starts to slip and the sandpaper wants to spin around. All right. So let me actually change mandrels because again the tape is starting to loosen up. We'll just get another one here. And let's try some of this grit here. I think this is 400. I think that other stuff was 320. But you got to judge it yourself, you know, what works for you. Come on now. Fight me. Break that edge. See, I haven't even polished the chamber yet. We're just doing that ramp. Now this is some 500 grit. All right, so you can see our ramp chamfered and polished, the transition between the ramp and the chamber. Now, you're not going to be able to see what you're going to be able to see what I do. You're not going to be able to see the results because I'm going to be inside the chamber at this point. And I'm going to try some of this, a little bit of this. Pretty close to the diameter of the chamber. Go in and out, in and out, in and out. Then I pull it out and I look because where I was doing the most damage, for lack of a better term, was when I'm polishing the ramp. The tip of the sandpaper was coming into contact up here. Well, you can see there's nothing in there now. I was careful enough to not damage the inside top of the chamber. So now I'm using, again, I think this is 320 grit. I don't know. Nope. And then I do have some 400 right here. I think that's 400. Okay, and then I'm going to hit it with the last little bit of 500. So what I'm going to do is put some stuff underneath. And basically I'm thickening up the diameter of the polishing surface. And everything takes longer when you're on camera, as I'm sure everyone knows. Or at least you do now. See that? Nice and shiny down in there. Perfect? No. But perfect enough? Absolutely. And by perfect, do I mean that every last little, blemish is completely removed? No, the blemishes that are going to cause problems are removed. You can still see some slight roughness in there. And it's not really roughness, it's more just the scratch marks from the sandpaper, but it's not rough, not at all. So, there's our barrel. I'm going to run a patch down it real quick. And while we're at the vise, going to want to work on that frame ramp. Okay, so in this view, you can see this is the area of the frame where the belly of the barrel comes down onto. Then here's where the ramp starts, and it's rounded over. This whole section right here is rounded over from here to here, and then the rest of the frame ramp goes straight down in there. What we would like to do is remove this whole rounded over section right here. I don't know that we're going to be able to do that though. So, I mean, we could do it, but it might not allow us to have the correct amount of jump, which is going to cause problems. Whoever did this really screwed this up. So it was probably done when they reblued this at the arsenal. Who knows? But I'm going to go in and try to hit this and take a look at it and see exactly how much we're going to be taking out. And I'm using a sanding drum that you can see that I've been using for quite a while for other things as well. Okay, that started to clean up a lot better than I expected. You can see I cut out material, but I only went this deep. So I want to keep going, but that cleaned up a lot better than I expected so far. So another thing on these military guns I'll mention real quick is sometimes where they machine out here, this comes way over before they start the ramp. And so I go ahead and break this edge right here and right here when I'm doing this, just to give the bullet less likely chance to dig into something there. So at this point, I'm going to stop and go back to the sandpaper and polish that up and move on to the next step. I can always take more material out later. Welding it up is a lot more work. All right, that's 400 grit. I know I got some other stuff here. A lot shinier. Removes the bluing, which is a high friction surface. Now, before I do anything else, I want to get some of this sanding stuff off of the gun in any places where it's going to be allowed to gather and get into the mechanism. Now, like I mentioned before, I'm going to come in through the bottom and push this paper towel out the top. And it'll clean a lot of that sandpaper and stuff out of there. Throw that away and use a couple of patches, at least that's what I'm going to use, with some oil on it. To, again, just using a cleaning rod brush, go down in there, wipe out any extra stuff. Obviously the gun has some rust and some other issues besides my little bit of sanding crud in there. But keeping the big bulky stuff out of there. All right. So I am going to go back to, I'm going to put this on the bench, and we're going to grab that extractor and go over to the 1-inch belt. And so you'll see me at the belt in a minute. All right, so we're at my 1-inch belt. Obviously it's not running. And what I'm going to do is, grab a pointer here if I can, is I want to take material off here. This is the limiter pad up by the extractor hook. So my 1-inch belt is going to hit this limiter pad as well, and that's okay. What I don't want to do is hit the extractor claw right there. So I'll turn this on, it'll be loud, and I'm just going to roll it a couple times about like so. Maybe even this one up a little bit if it looks like it's uneven when I'm doing it, and then we're going to stop. It's not going to take much. Fairly fine. I mean, it used to be a coarser grit, but it's about half wore out now, so. Watch your fingers. All right, so it looks ugly. Ooh, look at my finger. Oh, I got it. Sandpaper burn. You can see I hit the edge a little bit. Doesn't really matter. This fits in a round hole, so by doing that, taking material off there and there, this should allow the extractor to move closer to the cartridge. Gonna bend it when we get back to make sure, well, I'll put it in the gun and check it first, but I'll probably end up having to tweak it a little bit. All right, so extractor was the last thing we were working on over at the 1-inch belt. I'm gonna go ahead and slide that in. And it goes in real easy, which means there's virtually no tension up front. So I'm just going to hold it in place with that finger, slide this up, and yeah, there's not nearly enough tension. Pull it out, use our expensive tool, extractor altering tool. Put a little bend in her. There we go. See how that's staying in place now? Take your glasses off so you can see what you're doing. I'm going to slide that and hold that in place. That just holds the extractor in position. Yeah, look at that. So that's probably the minimum amount that I would want. Not bad. Not bad. All right, in this view you can see the extractor hook. So it's not touching, and the case is back against the breech face. So the extractor claw does not extend all the way into the full depth, but real close to it. We got lucky on this extractor. The part that touches the cartridge is positive. That's the part behind the hook. And this inclined plane of our rim cut in the brass does not touch our extractor. So our extractor's doing what it needs to do. Now you can see that a live round doesn't quite want to snap out of there. But we're going to have to test fire this anyway. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put the firing pin back in. And I gave that spring a little stretch. We talked about that earlier. It doesn't hurt to give it a little stretch. Good. So I didn't polish that face on the extractor. I'll probably hit that on the buffer. I'm going to put it together and check things now. The buffer's not going to make it work. If it's not going to work, it just might make it work a little easier. The shell slide a little easier, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. So let's put our guy back together and see what we can see as far as our jump and such. I don't think we're going to have enough jump. Oh, come on now. There we go. All right, our rule is 1.5 to 1. We want the distance from where the frame ramp ends and the barrel ramp starts. We want that distance to be 1.5 times the distance of, or the distance between the bottom of the barrel and the saddle portion of the frame. So let me get some magnifiers on here real quick. And when we started, there was one other thing that I was going over in my mind that I wanted to cover and talk to you guys about that I forgot. And it's a big, important deal. So, and that's the check for a short link with the hang test. It passes, but that's one of the things you check when the gun's all assembled right off the get-go. So you know, hey, I'm going to need to make or get a longer link. The distance between the slide stop and the barrel pin, link pin, needs to be greater. So the link angle is more of this angle instead of straight up and down. So there's less friction between the inside bottom of the slide and the top of the barrel. Now this one passes, but that's something to be aware of. So often that can look like when you're shooting a 3-point bind. The bullet nose is in the barrel. You're thinking that the bullet nose is hitting the inside top of the chamber, which it may be. It's pushing the barrel up. And the ramp and the slide face, those 3 points binding the shell, 3-point bind. But it can be that that link is too short and there's just simply friction. This one passes, so we don't have to worry about that. All well and good. I didn't want to make a new link anyway. But I wanted to pass that on because that is something I meant to do and I just got in a hurry and spaced it, forgot about it. Okay, so essentially I want to test this with some dummies. So I want to put the grips back on simply so I have a good gripping surface. I'm not going to put them on super tight, just run them in. Because if I have to pull them off again in a minute, I will want to. I don't think I'm going to need to take them off, even if this fails and I need more jump. That work is going to need to be done on the barrel, not on the frame. And so, yeah, I don't think. And yes, I am using live ammunition. I'm only going to put 2 in for now. So we are empty, pulling the trigger. What I was doing is checking for follow down. Trigger pulled, continuing to hold the trigger. So we don't get follow down with, surge, and we don't get follow down with disconnector. So we shouldn't, because our hammer's positive, as long as our springs are correct. Check that before I put a live round in and start monkeying with it, because if it goes off, then there you are, right? Negligent discharge. So some people don't like live ammo. That's fine. If you don't use live ammo in your shop, great. To each his own. I do. So, all right. So what I did was I allowed the bullet to move forward. It is touching the bottom of the barrel ramp. See that? I like it when I can slowly let the slide come forward to where it pushes the bullet forward, then let go, and it continues to feed the rest of the way. Now, does this mean that this gun's not going to feed? I don't know. We're going to find out here in a minute. But you can see that that was pushed forward, shoot, over 1/4 of an inch. So now we're going to try just dropping the slide, magazine's in, and we fed. Now that's the way the gun operates. It's fast. Bang. It's fast. So by me allowing this to come forward, push the shell forward, just tightens things up. There. Just pushing on the back of the slide and my thumb blocking the hammer in case we decided to fall. Fingers nowhere near the trigger. It went ahead and closed. So honestly, this is probably going to feed. I think this is going to feed. It's going to feed ball for sure. Now, it may not feed hollow points. And I will try to get some and use those when I test fire. But you can see what's going on. What I looked at first before I even took the gun apart, except for that whole hang test thing there that I forgot. But I remembered and showed you, so you can't hold it against me. Regardless, all the common things that you look for, right? Extractor's a big one. Chamfer that chamber, the jump, and both ramps being correct. Polish those things up. So literally, I'm probably gonna, at this point, I don't think I'm even gonna polish that extractor. I mentioned I might go hit that on the buffer. It's gonna work. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is get some live ammo. We'll go to the range, test fire. Unfortunately, you guys won't get to see that. But yeah, at this point, I think it's gonna run okay. And we'll go from there. So you guys saw how we did that. We'll see you next time.
If you want to learn real gunsmithing and see more videos like this, be sure and like and subscribe so you don't miss out. If you're interested in training to be a real gunsmith, go check out the American Gunsmithing Institute.com, or for your own firearms training, AmericanGunsmith.com.